Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's webinar. This week, we are going to be taking you through taking on balances. So this is normally if you need to start a new company, you are new to Sage Pastel Accounting, you've come from older software, or you need to restart your company for whatever reason. You would then want to take on balances. Now, there are specific reports you will need to take on balances. I just want to get there. So those reports are normally an audited trial balance. So you'll want your trial balance in full, and it is better if this has been audited so that you know that your financials are 100% correct. You will also need your customer age analysis, your supplier age analysis, and if you make use of inventory, you will need your inventory valuation. So, guys, those are the reports that you're actually going to need in order to be able to take on your balances. Once you have those reports, then there are specific things that you need to do within Pastel. Now, Pastel does allow you to use a general journal to take on your balances, but there are specific control accounts that you actually cannot post transactions to. And those are your customer control account, your supplier control account, your inventory control account. And although you can post to your bank general ledger accounts from a general journal, you shouldn't. The reason that you shouldn't is because your bank recon will never reconcile. Only transactions processed through your cash book appear on the bank recon. Guys, what I mean by that is you've got your cash book here, and only transactions that have actually been processed within the cash book process screen appear on your bank recon. If you do a general journal, a customer journal, any other form of journal, and you use your bank account general ledger, it's not going to show on your recon. That's where your bank recons go out, and at some point I will probably do a webinar on doing a bank recon and when it goes out. So guys, the next question then would be, okay, so how do we process to these specific accounts? Because those are some of your main accounts. Well, guys, the first thing that you're going to need to do when you take on balances is you're going to need to go to Edit, General Ledger, Accounts. And the reason for this is because you're going to have to make at least 4, or probably 3, max 4 additional general ledger sub-accounts for your opening balance suspense account. So the first thing that you'll check is you'll make sure that you actually have an opening balance suspense account. If when creating your company, you use the setup assistance as advised, that account number will be 990-000, and it will be called opening balance suspense. It's normally a balance sheet account and it's a current liability. In all honesty, this account should actually never have a balance. It's a suspense account used for balancing transactions. And at the end of every year, this account should actually be 0 because it should then go to the correct accounts. This is an account you use when you don't know what the other side of the transaction is. So you know you're doing a customer journal, but you don't know where to. You would use your opening balance suspense accounts, and then your bookkeeper or your auditor would double check. And they would go, okay, there's a value of 5,000 in your opening balance suspense. It actually should have gone to the loan account or wherever it should have gone. And they'll give you a list of journals to do. So guys, you actually are going to use your opening balance suspense account. Now, you could use it as it is, but that can make it difficult to identify if there is a value in it, where that value came from. So what we advise is that you actually create sub-accounts. So you'd enter your 990 or whatever your opening balance suspense account main number is, and you'll then create your first sub-account and call it customers, for example, or debtors, whatever works for you. Then you've got your suppliers. Your inventory, and lastly would be your bank. In this way, when you're clearing out the accounts, if there is a value, you can see where it came from. Is it that you didn't take on your customers correctly, or your suppliers, or your inventory, or your bank? So that way it shows you exactly what maybe has gone wrong. The next thing that you then going to need to do is you're going to need to open your trial balance. Now, guys, I haven't created import sheets for all of these because I took a very small trial balance. As you can see, most people's trial balances will not be this small. They'll have a number of accounts. Now, when your prep work before you start taking on balances is to double check that obviously all of the accounts exist within Pastel. So that would have been part of your getting started. The next thing that you will then need to do, sorry guys, I just want to make this a little bit smaller so that I can actually take on these balances. Otherwise, we're going to be jumping through a lot of different screens. Apparently, Pastel does not want me to. Oh, there we go. Okay, so guys, now you'll have your trial balance and you're actually ready to start taking on your balances. So the first thing you do is you're going to go to process journals. When you take on balances, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to do a general journal. All of the other journals come after this, but the general journal comes first. Now, I know that you can't see my entire general journal. That's okay. I will scroll as we enter. But before we start with our general journal, we're going to select settings, and you're going to deselect this here. And if tax processing is selected, you're going to deselect tax processing. You can then choose to reprint descriptions, reprint projects. You can choose if you want to increment references or not, or once. And if you want the balloon tips to show up, this is where you would turn them on or off. As well, if you are going to use a specific contra, you would set up the contra here. In this case, we're not going to. We're going to click on close because everything should balance. Then we want to start using our journal. So we're going to process in the 12th period or whenever your trial balance was audited. So guys, it doesn't necessarily have to be something you do after year end. People normally do create new companies or move to new software after they've done their year end, but this can be at any time. So whatever period your trial balance is at when you had it audited, that is the period you're going to select, as well as the date. You then are going to select your account. Now, here you'll see that mostly it's actually my control account. So as I advised, you actually can't use a control account. If I try, it's not going to allow me to do that. So in this instance, we'll go 9990 and we would select our customers. Our first is, oh, sorry guys, it was inventory, my bad. That was 3, sorry. So we'll select our inventory, give it a reference, for example, take on balances 001 or whatever makes sense to you, so that when you do view this or when your auditor needs to view it, they understand what's happening. If they have a question, you can go, oh, that was when I took on balances. Give it a nice description, and then you're going to literally follow your TB. This is a debit, and then you need to make sure that you enter the correct values. Simple as that, guys. There shouldn't be anything else that you enter here, not the contra account or anything else. And basically, you're going to continue to do this until you've actually taken on all of your balances. So guys, this isn't going to take me a minute to do. As I said, I chose a very small one specifically so that I could show you. So guys, you can see here that actually what I'm doing is I'm using my opening balance suspense accounts for my inventory control, my customer control, my bank. Now these tips that are coming up on my screen are the balloon tips. So that's what I said by you can keep them on or you can turn them off. And my supplier. Then guys, your VAT and tax control account, this should have already been reconciled to SARS. There shouldn't be anything outstanding. So in that case, processing directly to your VAT control account should be fine. There shouldn't be anything outstanding or anything that you should have already submitted everything. So you don't want to duplicate it by making this 100% tax and then again there's a problem with your input and your output and how much you owe SARS. This should all have already been sent through to SARS and you should have already been making your payments or getting your refunds. So if you process directly to your VAT control account, guys, it also does not show on your VAT recon. It won't come up and tell you, okay, this is input and output. Direct processing means that basically it's like having 00 tax type. It just doesn't come up. I hope that makes sense. And guys, with your income sheet, you're basically going to process directly to those accounts. So this is my sales value. So this is where you use the actual account. So the only times you use your opening balance suspense, customers, suppliers, inventory, bank, other than that, you use the accounts that you have set up. Exactly. In my case, all of my general ledger account numbers are exactly the same as my TB. Yours may not. You may have to actually look for the descriptions. It's not a problem if they are not the same. You do not need to panic. It is fine. It's just obviously I got a TB from Pastel. Now guys, hopefully if I have done everything correctly as per the TB, now you see here this is a problem. So it's telling me that I have done something wrong here because, and I just want to make sure, yep, it's giving me a credit. Now technically what this should say is in balance, which means that somewhere I've written the wrong value. So when that happens, we need to go and double check. Okay, what did I do wrong? Okay, so this is 564, and that's where I went wrong. As you can see, I didn't enter my other 4. I did my 564, but then I did 94 instead of 494. Then again, we can see that there's a 95 difference on the credit side. So something here doesn't balance up. So somewhere I didn't put something. And here we can see again, it is with our inventory. If we look, it now says imbalance. So guys, this is what you wanted to say. So if you see that they're values, it's going to tell you that there's a problem. It needs to be in balance. All of the debits and the credits actually need to add up. If you are doing the journal for last year, you also need it to say last year in red. So these are two very important things. As I said, if your TB is, say, for the current year, so you're doing it now for July, then you won't untick last year depending on how your financial years work. But then you need to make sure that your dates and your periods correspond. And this is the most important, guys. It needs to stay in balance. So guys, before I update this, does anyone have any questions, anything that they would like to ask me about what I've shown you so far, about the general ledger part of the take-on? If you don't have any questions, you can either type no or no questions in the Q&A or the chat. If you do have anything, I'm just going to give people a moment to type out their questions for me. Sorry guys, someone was having issues with sound. I do hope that that was resolved. Okay, so guys, it doesn't look like anyone has any questions at the moment. If you do, please feel free just to send it through. I will check again in a moment. So guys, basically here, once you've got everything in balance, you've entered everything, you can basically update your journal. I would strongly advise that you always make a backup before updating. The only reason being, if there are any problems, you then have those backups, especially when taking on balances. Because of the fact that it can be a very long process. I mean, guys, I've taken the shortest TB. I've hardly got any info in this company. Yours will probably be a lot more, especially when it comes to the customer, the supplier, and the inventory take-ons. And guys, in that scenario, you will want to have backups, because if something goes wrong and you suddenly realize, oh, I'm 5 steps ahead and I need to go back, it's a lot easier to go back to a backup where you've got some of the work done than where you have to clear everything and start from scratch. So here you can click on update. If you tick the option to make a backup, it's then going to ask you where you can either make it to your local C drive, so you can create a new folder if you like and just go take on backups, or you can make it to your external, whatever works for you. Guys, this is just so that you have a point to restore from should anything go wrong. Then should all update. So guys, then you're going to go to view general ledger, transactions, financial reports and trial balance. Now your trial balance isn't yet 100% correct, but it'll give you an idea of how everything looks for the moment. So if we go okay, we can see it, but you'll see that this is obviously all in my suspense accounts. It is not yet in my actual control account. So the next step is actually getting the values from the suspense accounts to the control accounts. And how we do that is by doing specific journals. So again, if we come here, this is why you needed your customer age analysis. You'll be able to see, because it told you, okay, your customers in total, there's 6,000 Rand that they owe you, but you don't know how that is broken down. Your age analysis tells you how it's broken down and which customers owe you what. So here you can then go and actually create those specific journals. So again, guys, we're just going to quickly minimize this, and then we would go to process journals, but now we're going to do a customer journal. So a straight customer journal here. And again, guys, if you are doing this for last year, double check your settings. In my case, I need to make it for last year. And we click on close. Now, guys, here you again have a choice. Either you can do the aging, which means that you actually process the journal per period. So you won't necessarily choose the date that the age analysis was run. You'll see that for ABB 029, there is an amount of 3,470 in 120 days. So I could go back if I know, for example, this actually happened, for example, in June of the previous year. I could then go to June and I could enter that value as per June. Or I could just take it on straight as at the time that I ran the age analysis. It's entirely up to you. If you are going to do your aging properly, it is going to be time consuming, but it does mean that it's accurate, which means that technically you would run the age analysis for every single period. And then the ones that have transactions in that period, you would actually process them accordingly. But only the ones that have values, guys, as when you're taking it on. So you don't want to run one for January and the client paid in February. So what I'm saying is that you need to know exactly when these outstanding ones happened. You'd run it as the age analysis at the time that you plan on actually creating your new company. But then you would have to run it, for example, for Abbott for every period to see, okay, where did this 3,470 come from? Okay, it was in June or it was in January of the previous year. Does that make sense? I hope so. In this case, guys, I'm just going to very simply take them on as at the date that I ran the age analysis. So I'm taking them on the 28th of Feb 2019. Quite frankly, I'm not going to muck about with completely getting the aging 100% correct, but as advised, for your financials to be 100% accurate, you should do that, but many people don't. If you're worried, please double check with your accountant or auditor. Again, please give it a reference and a description. I actually want to change this to customer take on balances. Otherwise, I might get confused with my general journal. Guys, just give me a sec because I think that I did have a... Hold on. Okay, so guys, the question is, so when you do your customer supply journals by aging, the aging balance will still show on the statement, right? Yes. If you age properly, so if I do this for 120 days, this value on my statement will show as 120 days. If, however, I do it the way that I'm doing now, it will not. It will actually, so if, for example, I'm doing this now for the end of February this year, and I had to then go into March, it would show as current. That's where I say that, you know, you need to make sure the right way to do it is to do your aging correctly, whereby you go, okay, that's in 120 days. Where did that 120 days originate? And that's the period and the date that you use. That is the correct way to do it, guys. What I'm doing right now is the quick, easy way, but then your aging will not be correct, and you need to understand that. It will not be correct for the information that you're taking in. I hope that makes sense. Personally, not the way that I would advise you to do this. Okay, and guys, this is where now it's important. Sorry, one thing that I should have actually shown you, my apologies. Okay, so the contra here is where you now are going to enter your suspense account. So this is where you're going to go, okay, I want my customer suspense account. Let me rather do it this way. And you also select your customers, because obviously it needs to go and fetch it, credit that account, and debit the customer control. Now this is current, so this I would actually do in the February. So this would be correct for this specific customer. The one before it probably should have been done, if I'm not mistaken, it should have been done probably in about June. I realize that I actually have that. Sorry guys, I just need to change this to 550. Sorry, I am using multi-currency here. And again, guys, just make sure that that suspense account is done correctly. The other way that you can ensure that that suspense account for these journals are all correct is in settings. You can put the contra there, especially if you have hundreds or thousands of customers that you need to enter your information for. It's a lot easier if you don't have to keep entering the control account. Just remember, once you're done with your take on, to please remove that. Otherwise, you're going to cause problems. So guys, again, that being done, what we would want to do then is we would want to go to update, and we're going to update this journal and make a backup before we update. And guys, this is why it's so important to keep checking your trial balance, because then you can check what's actually happening. Are things correct? Are things wrong? Are things where they should be? So here we can check our customer control accounts, and you can see that the opening balance suspense account for the customers is now missing. So this is starting to now look correct. And this is why it's so important to check. Guys, does anyone have any questions with regards to the customer side of things? Okay, hold on, there is one. Sorry, guys. Let's see, I wish that this thing would show me properly. Sorry, someone sent me a question, but the question's quite long, and for some reason it doesn't really want to bring up the question 100%. I'm trying to get to it again now. My apologies. Okay, so what happens if the original TB sent by the client is, and then I'm just trying to read the rest of that. Sorry guys, there's a bit of this that I'm missing. Can I send you an answer via email? Because I'd actually need to see the full question, and for some reason it's not allowing me to expand. I'm terribly sorry about that. Okay, am I actually having issues? Come on. Okay, so guys, I'm going to move on. Basically, we're now going to do the supply side. Now, guys, the supply side is basically exactly the same as the customer side. There's no, little loopholes or different things. You're doing the exact same thing. You're checking your age analysis, and then you're going to process journals, and you're going to do a supplier journal. Much the same way as what you just did for your customers. You're going to double check your settings as advised. If you do want to enter that control account in the contra account, or sorry, the suspense accounts in the contra account, you can do so. It'll then show you suppliers, make sure that your settings are set correctly, and then you can again select the actual option. So this is in 60 days. So if I did this in February, this would have been January, actually. So if I was going to age this correctly, I'd go to, or sorry, December, I'd go to December, and I would then enter my supplier. You can see that my contra account is already filled in now, which is really nice. And guys, we'll do that for all the suppliers that we have. Update. And as you can see, every time I update, I am just making it back up. The reason being is if I go and view my TB and it's wrong for whatever reason, I know which step I've gone wrong at. I can rather restore and correct. So let's, sorry guys. And with any luck, that is now looking a lot better. Again, you can see that my supplier suspense account is now missing, and this is starting to look like my original trial balance, which is what you want. So guys, as I said, suppliers are exactly the same as your customers. If I probably had to go and view my supplier, you'll see that it looks exactly the same as my current TB, 60 days, 60 days. So that's what I mean by accurate. You saw that I didn't actually use February. What I used was December, because that's when this transaction would have taken place. And that's what I mean by accurate aging. This is how it should look. Your age analysis should look identical to what you've been given in the different aging periods. If they're all undercurrent, it's a fast way of doing it, but then realize that your aging's wrong. Okay, so guys, are we ready to then take on our inventory? Are you guys happy to move on to inventory? Perfect. Okay, so guys, inventory, you're going to do an inventory journal. That due to what my inventory valuation looked like, I did think sitting here and even 20 lines is a bit much to expect you guys to all just wait for, but you'll have your inventory valuation. Now, this gives you all the information you need. It should give you your code, your description. If you are using multi-stores, your store, the quantity on hand, your cost, and then it should give you the valuation accordingly. And basically, you're going to enter your journal exactly as you see it here. In my case, I did actually create an inventory journal, and you can do that as well. You can go and create CSV files, especially if you have a lot of information, and you can actually just import them. So here we can see that, sorry guys, I'm going to expand my pastel because I'm not going to work off of the PDF this time. Again, we've got our settings. The settings here are a little bit different. So they don't quite give us what the other journals do. They ask us if we want to increment reference numbers, repeat narrations. Now guys, repeat narrations actually means repeat descriptions. Please don't tick this because this can make reconciling your inventory journals very difficult, because you will see all of these different reference numbers with all of these different codes, but everything's called, for example, a CD-ROM. doesn't help you, because a lot of people freak out and they go, okay, stuff's been taken in wrong. No, you repeated the narrations, which means repeating descriptions. Don't repeat descriptions. Repeat projects that you can use if you're going to use the same project for the whole inventory journal, email documents, and print serial numbers. So print serial numbers is if you actually use the serial number tracker add-on module, and email document means that it'll email you the inventory journal. So guys, I only have to increase the reference numbers, but I did actually already do that in a CSV file. So guys, here you'll see this is actually what it would look like if I had entered it manually. It would have entered it accordingly. So here you can see my narrations are not repeated. Otherwise, everything would have been, for example, accounting. My store, my date. Now, your date you set at the top, sorry, you select the period, and in my case, because I'm using partner, it will ask me if I want a normal batch. Also, because I have multi-stores, I can do inter-store transfers. So guys, this should be grayed out normally unless you have multi-stores. And your period, you can only go up to last year, the last period, or the whole of this year. It doesn't allow you to go back further than that. And here with my serial numbers, you'll see that I do need to go and select those serial numbers. So this is asking me to start a serial number. Sorry guys, in this case, I'm just going to make it easier and just go okay. At some point, I will do serial number tracker, and I'll show you guys how to do that 100% correctly. So guys, again, your general ledger account, and unfortunately with the inventory, unless you do what I did and you use a CSV import, you will have to manually enter this for each and every line. Now guys, just to give you a bit of info, this is what the inventory journal layout looks like. And the quickest way to check a layout and see what you need to do is actually process one line and export it to a CSV file. It will then give you the information, and if you actually, instead of getting all of your information in PDFs, if you can get them in Excel, whether it's an Excel workbook, you can literally copy and paste. You can copy and paste your date, you can copy and paste your codes, your descriptions, you can enter your own reference numbers. Here, this is the quantity. In journals and cash books, it's a little bit different. This is the value, and this is my contra account. And then my store is here. So guys, this is a little bit different because it is an inventory journal, but you can use your CSV layouts in order to import your information. You don't have to do everything by hand like I did. You can use Excel. In this case, it will not give you an imbalance at the bottom. You'll just see either last year, or you'll have your information, and we can then update the batch. Now, normally when there are variances, it's normally with regards to inventory. Just so that everyone is aware, and sometimes you will find that there are values left in the suspense account that were not cleared by your inventory journal. And that is the most common place that it comes up, just because depending on the software that you came from, or if you're using Pastel, it uses average cost, not last cost, and there can be a slight variance between the inventory control account and your valuation. Guys, I will do a webinar on that at some point where I will explain that in depth. In this case, however, it completely ties up. So guys, the last thing that I need to do here is my bank. And the only reason that I'm doing this is to make sure that when I do my bank recon, it reconciles. There's no other reason why at all, other than the fact that I just want my bank to reconcile. I don't want to have to constantly go, oh, there's a problem with my bank. Oh, that's right. I did a general journal directly to my bank. It's out by the opening balance. That's very frustrating and it freaks people out and it's unnecessary. Take the extra step to take your banks on properly. It's just easier in the long run and you don't have all of the issues. Okay, so guys, the bank was, where's my bank? There it is. 2550. So I would need to receive. No, I would need to. Yeah, I'd need to receive. Sorry guys, the bank I do sometimes get a bit confused with, and hence why I make a lot of backups. So again, we go to our settings. Your contra is your bank. So in this case, you cannot change the contra account. And if I did that correctly, then my TB should look exactly as my original one. And it does. So guys, if you have to look at the two trial balances, sorry, I'll open them up next to each other now. I don't know if you can all see that, but they now look identical. And you will see that there is no opening balance suspense account because that account has been wiped clear. If, however, there had been, I would have known exactly where. Was it my bank? Was it my inventory? Was it my customers? Was it my suppliers? But guys, this is it. I've now taken on my balances. I'm ready to go. Okay, so guys, I've got a question, and the question is it okay when doing backups to always overwrite previous backups? I'm assuming that you're on an older version of Sage Pastel Accounting, because if you're on the latest versions, guys, what you've been watching me work in is Sage 50C. So Sage 50 Cloud, it is not a cloud-based product. It just has cloud capabilities. But it doesn't overwrite because it gives it a date and time stamp. So in my case, I'm not actually overwriting. If we go and actually look at those backups, you'll see that they took them all at different times. So I'm not actually overwriting them. So I can restore from any point. I think that this was introduced in version 14, but I cannot remember exactly which build. But guys, I would advise that if you're running anything lower than version 14, it might be time to upgrade, more for the fact that you actually want your software to move with your Windows. Like, guys, software you should constantly be updating. You don't want to be left behind. But yeah, I think from version 14.05 maybe, it actually gives it a time and date stamp. So none of your backups are ever overwritten. Guys, please, however, when making backups, please never back up into your company folder. It makes it incredibly big and cumbersome, and that can give you errors when writing to the database. So always rather create a folder called backups and back up to that folder if necessary. You can then choose which ones to delete. Oh, okay. So version 18 should absolutely do what I've done. It should increment like this, and then you can check the exact time, dates, when, what, so that you know when you're actually restoring from. Guys, we realize that overwriting backups cause an issue because you may need a previous backup and the one that you have immediately has the same issue, and you want to go back little bit by little bit. So this is why we did this. So please bear that in mind. Guys, does anyone have any questions on any of the processes I've taken you through? Anything you want to ask me? If I may ask, guys, could you, rather than using the Q&A, could you use the chat? The Q&A doesn't seem to want to expand properly, so I can't actually read your questions 100%. But if you use the chat's working really well. Guys, if there's anything you need me to go over again or do again with you, please let me know. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, please send them through to me now. If the person who sent the previous question on the Q&A would like to send it in the chat, you can do so. Otherwise, I'm happy to mail you. Like I promised, I will mail you the answer. It writes like a text file when I'm done with the webinar to my computer, so I will be able to read it then. Guys, so these webinars, I'm probably going to run them, depending on how many delegates I get, probably once every 2 weeks. So there'll be 2 a month. I typically would prefer to run them on a Friday. We're still deciding if a Friday morning or a Friday afternoon is best. That's where I need your guys' input. Would you prefer to do this at 10 in the morning, or would you rather prefer to do this at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? Okay, I will, guys, someone's asked me to repeat the inventory valuations part of the webinar. We'll do that shortly. For those of you who'd like to let me know what times are better for you, please let me know. As I said, I am going to set up new ones that will actually be on Sage City probably Monday midday. I should have updated that. Okay, then guys, with regards to the inventory valuation, so you will need a valuation. Your inventory valuation is a report. So on your inventory, if we go to view, and guys, this doesn't happen often where your actual control account matches your valuation, and there are very specific reasons for that. And as advised, I will do a webinar on that. But you've got your inventory control account, and that gives you a value, much like your customers and your suppliers. It's just a value of what's in your TB, but it doesn't tell you how it's broken up. Now, we've got 500,000 here. That 500,000 is broken up over many items. Now, your inventory valuation, which is this report, and it's what we call in Pastel. I'm not sure. I hope other accounting programs call it that. I would think that they would. But this is where you would run it. And then it literally breaks up that 500,000 and tells you, okay, so, 24,000 of it is sitting here. And in my case, it's sitting in Cape Town in 11 quantities. In 169 quantities in Joburg, I have 378,000 Rand worth of stock. So this is what your valuation does. Now, Pastel uses your average cost normally. You can use last cost, depending if you're running it per month or per year. But generally when processing, so when you bring in your stock, it brings it in at the actual cost, whatever the supplier you've bought it from the supplier at. But when you sell your cost on your inventory control account, and sorry, I'm going into a lot more detail here, but on your edit inventory item file account, you'll see you've got a last cost unit and an average cost unit. Your average cost unit is what is used, and normally the cost of sale is actually calculated at time of sale. So that's where a slight variation can come, because you're bringing in the stock at what it actually is. So you're bringing it in at last unit always. But then when you sell it, it's working on an average. So if you bring something in, and I've got this worked out on a document, I'll try to find it, guys. I hope that I've still got it. I did this probably about 3 years ago. Sorry, it has been that long. I just want to check if I've got it. Sorry about this, guys. Oh, I did do it. Great. I did keep it. I thought that I would have. Okay, so guys, this is an inventory calculation. It was done in quite a while ago, but this is how Pastel does inventory calculation. So if anyone was confused on how the calculations work, this is how the GP has worked out: sales minus cost. Markup equals sales minus cost. Average cost is the total number of items on hand and the cost of one item. So total number on hand, X, the cost of one item. So for example, you buy 10 pairs of shoes at 150 each. 10 times 150 is 1,500. But then you sell 3 pairs at 200. So the cost of sale at this point is 150 times 3, which is 450. You then buy 5 pairs of shoes at 200. So now it's 200 times 5, which is 1,000. And your average cost equation works as such: 10 times 150 in brackets minus 3 times 150 in brackets plus 5 times 200 divided by the total quantity on hand. So you would have 1,500 minus 450 plus 1,000, which will equal 2,050 divided by 12, which is 170.83 as an average cost. I don't know if that made sense to anyone. I do get it, but it's how it works. So now when you sell the next pair of shoes, the cost of sale is actually going to be that 170.83. It's not going to be 200 or 150, but that can cause a slight variation when you viewing your valuation report, because your valuation report, you choose last cost. So your last cost was 200, but you only bought 5 pairs of shoes, but you've got 12. Now it's going to value 12 at 200. Do you guys see that your control and your valuation might be off by a small value? I don't know if that makes sense, if I've explained that in a way that can make sense, because I think that's where I might have lost people. And guys, that's where I said that you might have a slight difference in your opening balance suspense. Please let me know if what I've explained made sense. Guys, I'll happily send this document to you if you want it. Guys, I should get all of your email addresses at the end of this. If all of you would like me to send to you this inventory calculation sheet that I created, I'm happy to do so, because there's a lot more on this than obviously just, you know, the average cost. We've also got our VAT calculations here for you. So this is a document that I did when I run the webinar, Everything About Inventory. This is actually what I use a lot of the time. Okay. Sorry, guys, just give me a sec. I'm just reading some of the questions. Okay, guys, so everyone seems to get that. Is that what you needed me to re-explain about the inventory? Sorry, please just let me know, because I assumed that was the part that you were looking for. Then, guys, another question that I've got is, what happens if the original TB sent by the client is different to what is received today for the take-home balances? So, guys, if you given 2 different TBs, there needs to be a decision of what's being sent. Like, there needs to be a cutoff. You can't constantly be going, oh, okay, we'll just try this or try that. That's why I say, actually, it should be audited. You should make sure that it's clear. But if, for example, you got sent an original TB, you know it's audited, but you've had to continue working. if you're fairly confident that the new TB is correct, you can print it out, but then you've got to stop working. It is that simple. You've got to go, okay, we're going to stop working. These are the balances I'm taking on. And if they are incorrect, your auditor should be able to give you journals to correct them. So I say have an audited TB just because, well, you want your financials to be right, but it's not a major train smash if there are things that are a little bit inaccurate, as long as basically your general journal has to balance. It's that simple. If your general journal doesn't balance, guys, none of this will work. Okay, so guys, I'll definitely send you all those inventory calculations. Guys, then someone has requested that I please do a webinar on Forms Designer. Now, guys, it depends on what exactly you want in Forms Designer itself. I can do the Forms Assistant, which is the quick, easy way, or I can do Forms Designer itself, and I can show you how to do specific things in Forms Designer. So I just want to see what everyone wants. I'm happy to do Forms Designer and teach you how to use it. It's a very awesome tool if you know how, but it can be complicated to learn. Just so that you do know, I myself found it quite complicated initially, but it is quite simple now because I've learned certain tips and tricks around it. So guys, you want to know the Forms Designer itself, how to actually literally manipulate your forms to look the way that you want them to. Okay, so guys, that'll definitely be one of the webinars that I will run then, as per your request. I can do both. It just might mean a slightly longer webinar. If that's not a problem for people, that's great. I do try to keep the webinars 30 minutes to an hour. But if it does run over and you guys aren't worried, I can do both, or I can do them separately. It's just the one will probably be 15 minutes then. Guys, using a Forms Assistant is actually quite basic. So I think let's do them in one. I just want to warn you that Forms Designer can be complicated and it can be a bit of a lengthy webinar. I have run it before. I'm happy to run it again. Okay, well, guys, hopefully I've answered all questions. If anyone has any other webinars they'd like me to run or any other questions, please let me know. I'm happy to stay on for a few minutes. If everyone else is happy, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Please look on Sage City for upcoming webinars. I hope that you all have an amazing weekend. And guys, this recording should be on Sage City as well on Monday by close of, well, by midday, because it's when I'm going to update everything. So guys, I look forward to seeing you in future webinars, and yeah, have a fantastic weekend. I'll stay online for anyone else who has any questions. Thanks so much, guys.